All right, welcome to this tutorial, my sixth tutorial. We're going to call this one Working with Brushes and Color Effects. I'm going to show you guys some of the brush settings and also some effects you can do with color and ways to affect color and change color and just some kind of cool things that you can do. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go File, New, and I'm just going to set this at, I'm going to go 500 by 500 pixels. Doesn't matter really what size we're using. Color mode is RGB color. Background content's white. I'm going to press OK. Okay, so we got a white canvas here. We're going to play around with some brushes and just look at the brush settings. So the paintbrush is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th one down. Click and hold it, and you'll see the very top tool is the brush tool. Go ahead and click on that. Now, your paintbrush is obviously what color you're going to paint is going to be the color of the paint, which down here for me is light blue right now. I'm going to click on that. This is my color picker. 16.7 million different colors. Each one has its own code. RGB values. You can drag the slider to get different hues and just go ahead and pick a color. Press OK. Now I'm going to go ahead and paint with my paintbrush. Now this brush, the size is determined by my size up top here. Okay, I got a 7 pixel brush with a 0% hardness. Now if I want to make my size bigger, I can just drag my slider here. I'm going to go to 50 pixels, and there's a 50 pixel brush with a 0% hardness. Now if we take our hardness slider and slide it all the way up to 100%, we're going to get a hard line. Okay, it doesn't have a soft edge, it has a hard edge. If I went to a hardness setting of around 50%, okay, and now it's a little harder, it's not got the real soft edge, but it's softer than the super hard edge. So that is a setting that you're going to use with your brush from time to time as well. Now I can go make my size really big here, color in my screen. I'm going to pick a new color down here in my foreground colors. Press OK. And I'm going to pick my brush size. I'm going to go back to around 50. And the next setting we're looking at is opacity. Okay, so 100% opacity, solid, can't see through it. Okay, completely solid paint color. Now I can adjust that. If I want a 50% opacity, now it's like a highlighter. You can see half through it, half of it's colored. If I color over it again, it's going to add another layer to that and make it a little darker. Color over it again, it's going to add another layer to that, a little darker. Okay, so that's opacity. If I made my opacity 1%, I can't make it 0. 1% is just a super fine. I'm painting here, but you can't really see it because the opacity is set so low. Here's 20%. So different colors, different opacity settings. Most of the time you're going to be sitting at 100% opacity. So I'm going to move my opacity back to 100%. Now the flow is how fast the paint's coming out of your brush. Okay, so if you decrease your flow, the paint, it's going to take longer for that paint to come out of the brush, kind of like an airbrush. So you're going to have to, kind of color more. Or it's like a marker that's a little, old. You got to spend a little more time to get it colored in. That's the flow. Again, 100% flow typically, because most people want to just have a nice smooth paint go over everything. Okay, so those are some of your brush settings. Now there's also, if you click this drop down list, there's some different brush types. Okay, so you can pick these different brush types. I don't use these a lot, but you can actually see what the brush looks like. I'm going to pick another color, so I can paint with this brush in different ways. Like I'm actually using the paintbrush here. Alright, and there's some other brushes up top. you'll see in here too that you can use, like this one's a little more of a fine pointed brush. If you go down though, there's some other kind of cool ones, like grass. You can paint grass. You know, these colors are being affected by your foreground color. So if I change that to green, and I change my background color to like a dark green, now my grass is going to be more of those types of colors. You can change the size of your grass. So I could do smaller grass, bigger grass. I can do leaves. And the size of your leaves can change. The color of your leaves can change. But it's just kind of a random sprinkling of those leaves. So there's different styles of brushes and different types of brushes that you can use. You know, 95% of the time you're going to be using a circular brush, or at least I do, to color things or do things. Different graphic design type techniques. Okay. Now, let's take our brush. Let's make it really big and just color this in quick. Then let's make our brush down to about, I don't know, let's go like 30 something, 33 I've got. I'm going to change my foreground color to be a different color. Excuse me, I'm going to pick red. Now, another thing you can do with a brush, you know, if I click and just put a dot down, if I hold shift and click again, I can connect the dots to make sure that I have straight lines, or I'm coloring with straight lines with my brushes. Like so. So that's another technique that I could use. Those are different brush settings, different brush techniques. Now I'm going to close this. I'm going to say no to save changes. I'm going to open up a picture. So I'm going to go File, Open. I am going to go into my folder here, DHS Shared, Business Ed, Graphics, and I'm going to go down to Unit 6, Working with Brushes and Color Effects. And I'm going to open up this car graphic. Okay, so here's a car. Now, if I wanted to change the color of this car, okay, there's different ways I could do it, but you know, if you look at this car, it's got green, it's got shiny green, it's got shadowy green. You know, how could I adjust this or change this? Well, one nice way that you can do this is with an adjustment layer. So I'm going to go down to my adjustment layers down here. I'm going to click on that button that looks like a pie chart, and I'm going to select Hue Saturation and add a Hue Saturation adjustment. And now with that, I can adjust the hue color, which allows me to change the color scheme of that image. And I can even change the amount of light saturation into the image. And I could even brighten it or darken it, which I'm just going to not even barely touch that. So I go, oh, I want a car that looks like this. Well, if you look at it, I'm going to take this off and turn it back on. It's affecting the car, but it's also affecting some of the objects in the background, the tree and the truck's lights. It's anything that has a hue, it's affecting. So if the object is black, white, or gray, it doesn't really affect it. But if it's got any kind of color whatsoever, it's going to affect it a little bit. So sometimes I only want to affect this vehicle. So I'm going to apply a mask to this, okay? Because you can see that a mask comes with that adjustment layer. I'm going to apply a hue, a mask to this hue saturation adjustment layer. So white means that this is affecting the entire layer. Whatever I don't want it to affect, I'm going to paint black on this mask. So I need to change my foreground color to be black. And then I need to grab my paintbrush. Okay, and I have mine set at size 33 right now still. And I want to make sure I'm on this hue saturation adjustment on the mask. Okay, but I'm going to paint black the stuff I don't want it to affect. Now, I could use a bigger brush here because you know, I can get more done then. But I'm going to paint those areas that are not the car black. So I got to kind of just trace around this car here. I don't want to touch the car. Now, if I did touch the car, it's not the end of the world. I just have to go back and paint it white so that the hue saturation is affecting that part. You know, and then I'm going to paint black the parts I don't want to have that adjustment layer affecting. So I'm going to paint over my windshield here to get it back to like the normal color. Maybe this windshield too. My brush is too big. So I'm going to go back, make a little smaller brush, go to white, and just kind of clean that up a touch. And there we go. And now I could go back to the hue saturation adjustment. I could change this car to any color. It doesn't affect the background. Real quick way to change the color of that vehicle. Excuse me. All right, I'm going to close this. Say no to save changes. I'm going to go File, Open, and let's open up the door. Okay, so now we got an image here where we have a teal door. We want to change this teal door to red. So what I have down here, I have this image, and you'll see that there's a background copy over the background. Okay, well, I'm just going to trash that and say yes, delete it. Now, to make a copy of that layer, of this background layer, I just need to right-click on it and go to, and change this, or go to Duplicate Layer, click Duplicate Layer, and it will make a background copy. Why do I want two layers? Well, if I do mess up what I'm doing with this top one, I still have the background on the bottom as a backup. So that one's always still there, even though I'm only going to affect the top one. Plus, I could lighten the top one to make the background see through it, so I can do some effects with two layers stacked on top of each other. Alright, so I'm going to click, and I want to replace the color of this. So there's a neat adjustment you can do. You can go to Image Adjustments, and you can go to Replace Color. And when you click on that, it opens up this Replace Color dialog box. And it basically says, okay, what color do you want to replace, and what do you want to replace it with? So right now, my color up here, I need to click on it, and I need to go, okay, I'm going to go take my eyedropper over here and find a sample of the blue that I want to replace, and I'll press OK. And now I can adjust this fuzziness. This is what it's going to affect. Okay, so I want it to affect as much of that door as I can. What do I want to replace it with? Well, I can click this color swatch, I'm going to go to the red down here, find a dark red, I can adjust my hues to the very bottom, press OK, and I can see how it's going to affect it. Now, you're also seeing that I'm missing some of this, so I could increase the fuzziness to affect more of that door. I could click this plus sign and I could add more blue, which will affect more of the red, the actual door too. So I can do this plus eyedropper, which will add to more, affecting more of that image. I can press OK, and there it is. I've changed that door to red. Now, you'll notice up top, you've also changed some of the object, had its color affected by the red too. So another good reason to keep this background copy, okay, because I might want to keep the good parts of the background, but I want the door red. So I'm going to erase the copy parts that I don't want to be affected by that red, that change in red color. So I'll go grab my eraser. My eraser acts like a brush, so I can change the size of that eraser, and I'm going to erase that top layer, and I'm going to get rid of that red tint that has kind of been applied to all my walls. So that looks a lot cleaner. You know, and even if you look at this girl, You know, I might want to paint over her a little bit too. You can see there's even red on her boot. You know, I can make this smaller. I could go in and get even tighter here and have it so it doesn't affect her. I can erase that. I kind of got into the door there too. You see that? So another reason for 2 layers is that I can make the change in color I want, but I can get rid of that color effect that's being applied to the parts I don't want to change color. So that's a good way to change color of an object too. Now I'm going to close this and say no to save changes. I'm going to go File, Open, and I'm going to open up the fan. So another color adjustment. You know, sometimes you take a picture, you want to change it to grayscale. Maybe it's your senior picture, maybe it's pictures after you've taken from vacation, whatever it might be. You know, one way I could do this, I can go to Image Mode and change it to grayscale. I can discard the color information. It becomes a grayscale image. Now it's great, but I have no control over what becomes gray, black, white, none of that stuff. So there's another way that's pretty cool. So I'm going to go Control-Alt-Z to undo that. And I'm going to add a black and white color adjustment. So I'm going to go down to my adjustments panel right here. Click on that button. And I'm going to go up to the black and white adjustment layer. Now this is neat because it changes it to black and white. But I can decide what's going to be bright or dark based upon how I slide that slider. So do I want to make the reds light or dark? Do I want to make the yellows light or dark? The greens light or dark? The cyans light or dark? The blues light or dark? Or gray? You know, what do you want? You can affect it exactly how you want. And you can grayscale that thing exactly how you want to change the colors to what colors you want to change the grayscale to be. I think it's really cool. Really good way to do it. You know, once I wanted to use this image, then I would just save it as a JPEG. All the layers become compressed, and no one even could tell, none the wiser, what's going on. So another neat way to work with color, changing from a color graphic to a grayscale graphic. I'm going to close that, say no to save changes. Now the last thing, let's go File, Open. I'm going to open up this flowers picture. Excuse me. Okay, and this image is pretty big. It's at 25% view right now. So it's a pretty big image. But I'm going to black-white adjustment this. So I'm going to click my black-white adjustment. I'm going to go ahead and click on that black-white adjustment. Okay, and I could adjust this any way I want to. Yellows, greens, right? Just like we did before. But now maybe I want to bring out some color. So anytime I do an adjustment layer, again, I have a mask. White is affecting the entire picture. I can use black to have it not affect the picture. So I'm going to go to my paintbrush here, grab my brush tool. I'm going to set the size of my brush to something pretty big here. Okay, so where am I at here? Whoa, 1,985. I'm going to go like, let's go like 1,000. Okay, so there's 1,000. All right, and I'm going to paint onto my mask. Okay, well, I need to paint black to make it visible, right? Now that's dead black. I can see black is not affecting it, white is. Well, I don't like that. That looks way too distinct, so I'm going to go Control-Alt-Z. I'm going to change my opacity. I'm going to move that down to about 20%. 21's fine. And if I just click, because my black is got 80% see-through, it's only applying 20%, which is just going to be kind of a gray. Okay, and I can just kind of colorize that image. The more times I click, the more color I get. Now, I want to get rid of that. I go back to white, change my opacity to 100%, get rid of it. I should have did this too. I should have changed my hardness to nothing. I want a soft brush when I do this. I'm going to go back to black. I'm going to set my opacity back to 20%. And now I'm going to click. And with that soft brush, that edge isn't so distinct. I can bring out the yellow. I can bring out the blue in this flower. And I can kind of create a colorized image. Really cool. Looks nice. It's got some grayscale. It's got some color. You can see my mask and what it's letting through and what it is affecting with the black-white color adjustment layer. So that concludes tutorial 6, working with brushes and color effects. Thanks for listening. See you next time.